In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm John Towers. This is the Abracast. So we got a show for you. We got a show for you this evening. And it's sort of one of these situations where our finger is sort of right on the pulse. So I had decided, pretty much upon the announcement of fifth Indiana Jones movie. I wasn't gonna go see Indiana Jones movie. Apparently I was not alone. But I did go see this movie that I haven't heard anything about. I didn't hear anything about the Sound of Freedom movie. I am familiar with Tim Ballard and his congressional testimony regarding human trafficking, and then I was like, oh, that's this guy, whatever. And then I started hearing like a lot of buzz and a lot of word of mouth about the movie or whatever, and I went and I seen it. And then over this weekend, something weird started to happen, where Rolling Stone and CNN were attacking this movie, and the movie isn't political. It's not even faith-based. I wouldn't say it's faith-based, and also it's not an action movie. Every place is calling it an action movie. It's not an action movie. It's like a drama. It's a drama, but it's not political at all. There's no politics to it, other than it's not. There's no left or right politics to it, but the media is crushing this movie, saying it's full of conspiracy theories and blah blah blah. Was what they say about everything nowadays, I suppose. But it really kind of was like, what is crazy. I don't think left and right make a difference anymore in this day and age. I don't think so. I think it's normal people versus crazy people. And if something like pedophilia and trafficking people, modern slavery, isn't something that we can all stand behind, I don't know. Like, I've lost faith in this country. I think it started over COVID. I was like, there's no way Americans are going to stay in their house for 2 weeks. And was I fucking wrong about that? And then every step of the way down has been more of this, oh, we're not going to put up with this. And then we do. So I've lost faith in the rugged individualists that I thought America was made up of. In these days, you look around and there's a war on children, and you can call it gender affirming care or whatever weird pink haired nonsense you're going to be talking about. But if you just line it up abortion. Well, abortion, you don't want to count that because it's women's rights, and you can't tell me what to do with my body. And fine, then you talk about genital mutilation of children. Well, it's not really genital mutilation of children; it's gender affirming care. Well, then puberty blockers and the permanent damage these drugs are inflicting upon children, with the drugs that they use to sterilize pedophiles. Oh, no. We're not sterilizing anybody. It's just gender affirming care. And I'm like, how many of these things do we have to tick through before it's like, maybe it's none of those things. Maybe this is like a war on your children. That's not even talking about like all the weird gay stuff they're doing in their faces and these drag queen shows and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, it's bananas. So, I was raised in the shadow of, oh God, do I want to talk about this? Of inappropriate sexual relationships within my family, and I'm like, this is not a political thing. Either you want to stick up for these things, or you don't. And if you don't, what is wrong with you? So it really started getting me thinking about this and this movie. And, this movie was made like 5 years ago or something, and Disney sat on it, and they had to like finagle the rights back in order to to get it released in the theaters. And, in some kind of weird karmic way, you're like, well, if Disney had the rights to release it, why didn't they? Well, I mean, come on. Why? I mean, fine. Ask the question legitimately in your head and play it out. Let's see. Obviously, the movie is good. It's worth watching. It's statistically crushed Lucasfilm's Indiana Jones 5 in the box office on 4th of July weekend, and that trend is continuing. Or not the 4th of July weekend, 4th of July, and continuing through this weekend. So, this is when Disney Plus asked me why I was canceling my Disney Plus account. I sent a little note to them, and I said, because of all the weird kid things that you guys are into. Also because of what they did to Star Wars. Anyhow, so we're gonna get trucking through here, and this movie that I'm talking about doesn't talk about the open border at all. However, we're going to tie human trafficking to the open border, and I don't mean we are going to do it. I'm just going to talk about these articles that I found that tie human trafficking to the border policy of this administration, and then we'll play it out here and see what happens. So I have a vessel of the art filled to the brim with a weapon of mass distraction right here. Let's get this party started and get going. I brought the wrong reading glasses with me. This is going to be fun. So we're going to start with the portion of the show called Abracast Reacts. We're going to do a reaction audio piece to, at the end of the movie, after the credits roll, they have this special message by the actor Jim Caviezel, who played a Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's movie. And I don't think he wrote this. He certainly didn't do it on the fly, because if you've listened to any interviews with the guy, it's insufferable. He just rambles and rambles and rambles and all this. So, but it's a powerful movie, and I just kind of want to talk about it. I don't even think we're going to do the whole thing, but here we go.
I want to thank you all for coming out and watching this movie. I'm guessing some of you are feeling sad, maybe over.
It's a fucking sad movie, by the way. Lots of tears in the movie. I could hear people all around me crying in the movie theater. I obviously was not crying. It's a lie.
You are feeling sad, maybe overwhelmed, or even a sense of fear, which is understandable.
Understatement.
But living in fear isn't how we solve this
The
problem.
bootleg, the lady giving
It's
commentary.
living in hope. It's believing that we can make a difference because we can.
Oh, I'm
But
gonna.
I want to make one thing clear. This movie you just watched isn't about me or Tim Ballard. It's about those kids.
That's right.
You know, Steve Jobs once said, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. Abraham Lincoln credited Harriet Stowe when she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. This powerful story inspired millions to rise up and fight against slavery. I think we can make Sound of Freedom the Uncle Tom's Cabin
Fuck
of
yeah,
21st
we can.
century slavery. This film was actually made 5 years ago. It wasn't released till
Disney.
now, with every roadblock that you can imagine being tossed in the way. And the names you see here on the screen took a stand, and they made sure this story could be shown.
Disney
to
didn't
all of
want it
you.
shown.
And now all of you have the opportunity to continue telling this story. We don't have big studio money to market this movie, but we have you. And the baton has now been passed to you. You are the storytellers that can get people to come see this film in theaters. When you come to a theater, you experience movies differently. There is no pause button. There are no distractions. We all have an experience as we watch the film together as a community. It makes it possible for strong messages like this one to take root. Sound of Freedom is a hero's tale, but I'm not talking about the character I play. It's the heroic brother and sister in this film that work to save each other. They are the true heroes. The most powerful person in this world is the storyteller. Together, we have a chance to make these two kids and the countless children that they represent the most powerful people in the world by telling their story in a way only the cinema can do. For a couple of months, while Sound of Freedom is in theaters, these kids can be more powerful than the cartel kingpins, or presidents, or congressmen, or even tech billionaires. We believe this movie has the power to be a huge step forward toward ending child trafficking, but it will only have that effect if millions of people see it.
It's true.
Now, I know it's weird because we're in the theater, but feel free to pull out your phones and scan this QR code. We don't want finances to be the reason someone doesn't see this movie, so Angel Studios boldly has set up a pay it forward program where you can pay for some.
So he just explains what this QR code is for the rest of the thing, and what it is you beep your phone, you beep it into your phone, and you could buy tickets for people. I'm guessing, I'm imagining in like third world nations or poor folks where these movies are being played. And the other amazing thing, besides all the fucking weeping at the end of the movie, is I looked around when this QR code came on and he was explaining it, and everybody's fucking phone went up, boop 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 boop, and I thought it was amazing. And I was just kidding about the crying thing. Everybody was crying, and I weep at fucking everything. If there's a commercial where a soldier comes home and surprises their family, I'm a mess. Like 30 when the 30-minute spot is over. Anyhow, this movie is fucking. It's an amazing movie. It's not an action movie. That's what everyone keeps saying that it is. It's certainly not that. But I'm kind of like getting misty just reliving this part of it. So at the end of the movie, it goes through these statistics, and it's like, hey, all these are the amount of people that are in sex slavery right now, estimated numbers, and these are the countries where they're going, and this is the country that that churns out the most pedophile content on the web. Do you know what country it was? It's America. It's the United States of America. We've got a fucking porn problem. Child porn problem. Freudian slip. So I'm watching these statistics. I didn't copy down the statistics. I didn't bother to look them up. We're probably going to run into statistics here, but they're going to be a little bit on the stale side. When we get to them, I'll try to make it obvious what years we're talking about when we're going through. But the statistics are shocking. And when they said like, hey, America is making the most pedophile content in the world, in the history of the world, like right now. This is another reason where I'm saying we're the bad guys. We're the fucking bad guys. Thomas Jefferson said, in order to keep this representative republic, we have to be a moral people. I think that's gone. I think that's, it's gone. Obviously, it's not gone from everybody, but it's gone. It's gone. These are antiquated ideas. So, okay, enough bullshit. Let's get to it. The Abracast Reacts 2, I already told you it was a great movie. I'm almost crying just thinking about the end of it, like right now. And that's what movies are good for. They're good for emotional stuff, right? And this is a terribly emotional movie. Bring your sunglasses. That's what I did. As soon as the movie was over, I put my sunglasses on and I peed and I got the fuck to my car as soon as I could. So here, I brought my wrong reading glasses in, so let's see if I can make this work. We're going to start out with a .gov. What's the name of this thing? It's the Bureau of Statistics. The link will be in the show notes if you're interested in getting a whole picture. Bureau of Justice Statistics releases human trafficking data collection activities. This is from 2021 and 2022, so it's not so old. And this was published at the end of 2022. Okay, U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Statistics has released a report describing their human trafficking data collection and reporting efforts for 2021 and 2022. The report details ongoing and completed efforts to measure and analyze the nationwide incidence of human trafficking, to describe characteristics of human trafficking victims and offenders, and to describe criminal justice responses to human trafficking offenses. Additionally, it provides information on human trafficking suspects referred to and prosecuted by U.S. attorneys, human trafficking defendants convicted in U.S. District Court, and admissions to state prison for human trafficking. These are the highlights. A total of 2,198 persons were referred to U.S. attorneys for human trafficking offenses in the fiscal year 2020. A 62% increase from the 1,360 persons referred in 2011. 62% in just about 10 years. Increase. The numbers are bigger even today. The numbers of persons prosecuted for human trafficking increased from 729 in 2011 to 1,343 in 2020. That's an 84% increase. The number of persons convicted in a federal human trafficking court increased from 2011, which was 464 persons, to 2019, which is 837 persons. Of the 1,169 defendants charged in U.S. District Court with human trafficking offenses in the fiscal year of 2020, 92% were male, 63% were white, 18% were black, 17% were Hispanic, 95% were U.S. citizens, 66 had no prior convictions, And at year end in 2020, for the 47 states that reported data, 1,564 persons were in custody of a state prison serving a sentence for human trafficking offenses. And there's a link so you can look at the whole report if you wanted to. Like I said, I'll put the link in the show notes. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about here? We're tying this to what we usually talk about on the show by linking it to the administration's open border policy, unquote. I found this on MSN.com. Team Biden middleman in multi-billion-dollar migrant child trafficking. Whistleblowers reportedly plan to testify. This is a story by Navdeep Yadav, April 26th. I'm guessing this year or last year. A whistleblower will reportedly tell a House Judiciary Subcommittee during the hearing on Wednesday that President Joe Biden's administration played a role of middleman in a multi-billion-dollar operation involving the traffic of migrant children. What happened? The House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration Integrity, Security, and Enforcement will be hearing the Biden border crisis exploitation of unaccompanied alien children's case to address a surge in unaccompanied children arriving at our southern border. The subcommittee will hear from three witnesses: Tara Lee Rhodes, an HHS whistleblower formerly with the Inspector General's office; Sheena Rodriguez, the founder and president of Alliance for a Safe Texas; and Jessica Vaughn, director of policy studies at the Center for Immigration Studies, reported Fox News. The publication, citing a copy of Rhodes' written testimony, said that she will warn of a problem that predates the administration but has increased significantly during the recent migrant crisis. Rhodes is expected to talk about her volunteering at emergency intake sites in California to help the HHS Office of Refugee Resettlement identify sponsors for minors who have come across the border. Quote, "I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with being recruited in their home country, smuggled to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR develops a child to a sponsor, delivers a child to a sponsor," unquote, she's expected to say. Whether intentional or not, well, let's look at the track record of this administration. It can be argued that the U.S. government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation run by bad actors seeking to profit off the lives of children. Rodriguez and Vaughn will also call for congressional action and for the investigation of federal agencies responsible. So there's the sound of freedom in this movie. He's the guy playing Tim Ballard is talking about the character of Tim Ballard is talking about the difference between a child and a bag of Coke. And he was like, when the bad guys have a bag of Coke, they can only sell it once. When you have a child, you can sell that child 5 or 6 times a day. And if that thought doesn't make you want to throw up, I imagine we're going to come across some other crazy shit here in a little while. Why it matters. President Biden is fielding criticism from both sides of the aisle over how his administration is handling a dramatic rise in border crossings by unaccompanied migrant minors. According to Customs and Border Protection data, the number of unaccompanied children who arrived at the border has significantly increased from 33,239 in 2020 to over 100,000 146,000 in 2021. 33,000 to 146,000 in under a year. And in 2022, 152,000. As a current fiscal year, which is the fiscal year of 2023, more than 70,000 encounters of unaccompanied children have already taken place. So in August 30th of 2022, there's this op-ed, human trafficking crisis at the border is coming to your hometown. Link will be in the show notes. Hundreds of thousands of migrants are crossing into our country illegally every day, and our border has never been less secure. When Biden announced the changes in the policy at our border soon after taking office, millions of migrants flooded our borders to take advantage of the lax rules. Entering and disappearing without a trace. Others have attempted to enter the U.S. with ill intentions, engaging in criminal activity both along the border and inside the country. Particularly, human trafficking has become one of the largest issues facing our border security, with men, women, and children being exploited and forced into labor against their will. Considered the modern form of slavery, human trafficking has become one of the world's most lucrative businesses, bringing in an estimated $150 billion fucking dollars annually for evil predators. One of the other statistics in this movie that they talk about is it's bigger business than illegal guns. It's bigger business than illegal drugs, or will be very, very quickly, is this human trafficking. Over the last year and a half under the Biden administration, human traffickers at the borders have been busier than ever since the president practically hung a welcome sign on our country's front door. It should actually be the back door. This administration has made it abundantly clear that they have no intentions of enforcing the immigration laws currently on the books, as proven by their destructive policies. In fact, one of the first actions the administration took back in February of 2021 was reinstating the catch and release. This policy that requires the Department of Homeland Security to release unprocessed migrants into the United States while awaiting their court hearings. Additionally, Democrats repeated attempts to end Title 42, along with the Supreme Court recent rulings that ended the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy, have left CBP agents' toolboxes almost empty. Without these necessary policies, our CBP agents have no ability to control the influx of migrants at the border or to properly check their backgrounds of those entering the country. The number of crossings along the southern border has reached a new historic highs for each month that has passed since Joe Biden took office. June of this year, U.S. border authorities processed immigrants over 1.7 million times in this fiscal year, by and large passing the previous record set in 2021. Despite there still being 6 months left in 2022. These historic highs mean that the number of trafficked persons is rising as well, especially considering that in 2021 alone, more than 400,000 migrants evaded apprehension, being counted among the, quote, gotaways, unquote, at the border. In just recently, it was revealed in June 2022 border statistics issued by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, that's CBP. The encounters of unaccompanied children increased 4% from May, while the average number of unaccompanied minors taken into CBP custody is averaging 752 a day. And tragically, children making this journey across the border alone are most vulnerable to attackers, or to traffickers, I should say. A study predicts nearly 60% of unaccompanied minors crossing the border have been caught by cartels and are being forced into child pornography and drug trafficking. 60%. Over my 5 trips to the border, I've seen children as young as 2 months old being smuggled by coyotes across the Rio Grande. On my first trip to McAllen, Texas in 2021, I met a little girl who couldn't speak because her vocal cords had been severely damaged by gang members who sexually abused her. If you think this is only happening along the border, think again. In my district alone, a largely rural area in north central Florida, authorities have encountered several traffickers transporting illegals to various parts of the state. 2 months ago, Florida Highway Patrol troopers in my canopy stopped a coyote from Mexico who was transporting migrants across state lines. Now, in jail on human smuggling charges, no matter where you reside, every town in America has become a border town. This unprecedented humanitarian crisis is solely the result of Biden's egregious policies. I don't think it's solely a result, but it's a contributing factor. It's reprehensible and quite frankly unimaginable that the administration charged with defending the Constitution and securing our borders could so abashedly do just the opposite. As a member of the House Homeland Security Committee, I'm gravely concerned about what is taking place along our borders, and even more unnerving is the thought that until Republicans regain, that's not even going to stop anything. All right, I'm abandoning this article. We're gonna move on to something else here in just a minute. I'd like to take the opportunity to point out that I have a featured topic link on Abracast.com. You can find episodes there. While you're there, check out the storefront and t-shirts and comic books and fucking cards, tarot cards. Fucking tarot cards, fucking stickers, and t-shirts, and tote bags, and fucking hip sacks, and fucking vessels of the art, fucking all that shit. All right, jump into the Heritage Foundation, Fighting Human Trafficking and Battling Biden's Open Border by Hannah Davis, Research Assistant, Border Security and Immigration Center. Hannah is a research assistant in the Heritage Foundation's Border Security and Immigration Center. Here are the key takeaways. Biden has professed a commitment to fight this multifaceted criminal enterprise, yet his immigration policies have only been exacerbated by the problem. Biden administration has embraced the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act in a way calculated to increase them. The absence of border security in conjunction with the non-existent interior enforcement has made the U.S. a fertile breeding ground for human trafficking. Human trafficking is a global business generating $150 billion in illegal profits. It encompasses forced labor, sex trafficking. Oh, we haven't even talked about the organ trafficking side of this. President Biden has professed a commitment to fight this multifaceted criminal enterprise, yet his immigration policies have only exacerbated the problem. Human trafficking increased massively the last fiscal year. Arrests rose 50%. Convictions soared by 80%, and the vast majority, which is 72% of those trafficked in the U.S. are immigrants, and most of them are here illegally. Many are women and children who are highly vulnerable to being smuggled and eventually trafficked. A study from the Coalition Against Trafficking Women estimated that 60% of the unaccompanied alien children, or UACs, are caught by cartels and exploited through child pornography and drug trafficking. To put it in perspective, more than 150,000 UACs crossed into our country last year. The Biden administration responded by declaring January National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. This, of course, did nothing to curb the problem. That month, 5,882 UACs crossed the border, an increase of more than 80% over the number logged by the Orange Man administration in 2020. The dramatic increase can be traced directly to the Biden administration's open border policy. On average, over 1,200 UACs are entering the nation monthly in 2023. Since taking office, Biden administration has reported over 30,000 alien minor encounters. The Department of Health and Human Services report that between January 20th, 2021 and February 7th, 2022, it placed nearly 150,000 unaccompanied children with sponsors in the U.S. It has been estimated that this influx of students will cost school districts an extra $4.6 billion annually. Rather than attempting to lower these large numbers, the Biden administration has embraced the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act in a way calculated to increase them. Section 235 of the act, misleadingly titled Enhancing Efforts to Combat the Trafficking of Children, grants UACs special accommodations such as expedited processing and benefits. Not surprisingly, after Congress passed the provision, the number of UACs from non-contiguous countries soared as parents and, more importantly, smugglers realized that in Section 235 all but guaranteed that any such child who could make it illegally into the United States would be released into this country, said Andrew Arthur, the Center for Immigration Studies. Section 235, coupled with Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' public statements that we are not expelling unaccompanied children has only enticed more minors into making life-threatening decisions. The increased flow of UACs increased the demand for sponsors, i.e., people willing to house and care for these children so they can be processed out of health and human service housing. To remedy this, the administration lowered the standard for sponsors, slashing the vetting process times to meet the deadlines set to meet Mr. Biden's self-induced emergency. According to HHS whistleblower, the lowered standards led to more and more of these children falling into the hands of cartels, pedophiles, and pimps. Many were claimed by, quote, family members, unquote, that they never met and then subjected to horrendous conditions. To curtail human trafficking, especially of children, the Trump administration allowed Immigration and Customs Enforcement to run DNA tests on immigrants claiming to be traveling in familial units. This program detected more than 6,000 fraudulent families. Even though the program was effective, Biden ended it. The absence of border security in conjunction with non-existent interior enforcement has made the U.S. a fertile breeding ground for human trafficking. The Biden administration's National Action Plan to Combat Human Trafficking proudly proclaims pillars, principles, and priority actions, but makes no mention of securing the southern border. It does, however, dutifully present ideas regarding equity, inclusion, and gender. The administration persistently presses leftist talking points, yet fails to recognize an obvious truth. Human trafficking and the misery it causes will continue to soar as long as there is no operational control of the southern border. Goes on to state, Congress must act to repeal Section 235 of the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. Otherwise, UACs will continue to head for our southern border, many encountering human trafficking cartels, along along the way, and others falling prey to insufficiently vetted sponsors or family members they do not know. The Biden administration's refusal to enforce humane, effective immigration laws tempts people to risk their lives daily until this administration makes common sense policy changes and starts enforcing the rule of law. The cartels will continue to control the border and the people who attempt to cross it. All right, and here we're going to dump into a New York Post a New York Post article. Biden's border policies facilitate shocking modern slavery. This is by Jessica Vaughn. Again, January 10th, 2023. Wednesday is National Human Trafficking Awareness Day, an occasion designed to draw attention to the presence of trafficking in our midst and the tolls it takes on the victim. This year, for its most prominent anti-trafficking initiative, the Biden administration is urging the public to mark the day by wearing blue and sharing selfies on social media. That'll do the trick. We'll have this problem straightened out in no time. The Biden's border policies, meanwhile, have literally been contributing to the human trafficking problem every single day since January 20th, 2021. When the president began dismantling immigration enforcement, results in the mass migration crisis that continues to this day. Trafficking is the exploitation or enslavement of someone by force, fraud, coercion, for labor, domestic servitude, or commercial sex. Law enforcement agencies report that incidents have spiked in the last 2 years, among an astounding 2.2 million migrants apprehended in the fiscal year of 2022. Overwhelmed, the border agents are told catch and release huge groups of illegal migrants, processing them swiftly, preventing officers from doing proper vetting for those apprehended, and often missing the opportunity to detect trafficking. The migrants are deposited into the streets and the cities and the towns and the border states, and or transported to destinations around the country where they are often isolated and vulnerable to exploitation and trafficking. State and local agencies ended up having to cope. One Texas sheriff in a county along the smuggling routes told a recent conference of officials working to combat trafficking that before 2021, his deputies encountered 1 or 2 cases of trafficking a year. Last year, they dealt with 77 cases. The other horrific scenarios, smugglers persuade parents to hand over their children in pursuit of a better life, taking advantage of policies that virtually guarantee the release of the unaccompanied minor to a sponsor in the United States. In 2022, nearly 130,000 such minors were released to a sponsor. That was a new record. Under President Joe Biden, the priority is to move the minors out of government custody as quickly as possible, rather than conduct meaningful inquiry into the child's situation, or to ensure a minor is placed in an appropriate safe house. Background checks and home visits rarely take place. Instead, contractors attempt to do well check by phone, not a particularly effective way to ascertain if a child is being trafficked, and about 1/5 of the sponsors don't respond to the phone call, according to the statistics officials gave Congress. These policies created irresistible opportunity for labor and for sex trafficking to occur. The traffickers promise naive migrants jobs in the United States and lure them into indentured servitude, peonage, sex trafficking, extortion, or demand that they work for the smugglers to pay off their debts to the traffickers. Some traffickers prey on minors, saying in the crowded, lightly supervised shelters where they cluster after crossing illegally, the kids fall in with gangs after reaching their destination and are sexually assaulted and pimped out for a profit. A Reuters report last month exposed that several Hyundai Kia auto part factories in Alabama hired dozens of Central American minors who had crossed the border illegally. The policies that govern the placement of minors who arrive unaccompanied are inadequate to prevent them from being placed in appropriate environments that include labor and sex trafficking situations and participation in the exposure to criminal gangs. These policies have always been inadequate in part due to the unmanageable volume of cases, but have been relaxed even more by the Biden administration, increasing opportunities for bad actors to exploit the system. Swift release has been prioritized over the vetting of sponsors. A loose regulation of guest worker programs, especially the H-2A and H-2B programs, also contribute to the trafficking. The H-2A visa is available to farm workers. The H-2B visa is available to employers for seasonal, unskilled, non-farm labor. As one study put it, conditions that create vulnerability for trafficking victimization are built into the temporary worker visa programs. Under Biden, the worksite audits and raids that used to catch some of these trafficking situations have been abandoned. So it's all pretty depressing. It's fucking depressing. I thought I could end with this here article that said, "Stopping child trafficking is everyone's job," says More to Life founder. Miami, April 24th, 2019. "Putting a stop to human trafficking has always been about prevention," said Dr. Brooks Bello, founder of the More to Life, an open doors outreach network provider and the nation's leading anti-human trafficking and victim recovery program. As human trafficking levels increase during difficult and challenging economic periods, especially within families where children are more vulnerable. Teachers, school nurses, counselors, and other educators become the most empowered first responders, as they are the best positioned to identify child abuse, neglect, and trafficking. During a keynote speech at the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development 2019, an international conference, Dr. Bello spoke passionately on the ever-increasing human trafficking problem, offering anecdotes of her own life story and the transition from victim to survivor and thriver to champion. As part of the applause-filled speech, Bello detailed the root causes of human trafficking, which take on many forms, including child abuse, domestic violence, and ignorance. Bello's unique firsthand understanding of how teachers assisted her journey by providing her and other tender-aged youths with the guidance and support they require. The path to recovery was amplified when she singled out her own fifth grade teacher who provided the necessary leadership in the youngsters in today's world needs. The emotionally charged, tear-filled speech offered encouragement to educators and teachers, and was truly magnified when she said, "The taste of freedom for the first time is the taste of the depth of our human souls." And that's what teachers give and do every day. Share what was, lead to determine what is, and give the tools to create what will be. Human trafficking is a serious societal issue and one that all of us will need to address, said David Arkless, board chairman of More to Life. We can do that by supporting agencies that work on behalf of the children and victims of all ages, and by making sure that we know the signs of human trafficking and what to do to prevent it. Arkless is a former president of Manpower Group Global and a respected participant in the Davos Global Economic Summit. Great. Anyhow, Just something to think about. Just a nice, light little episode here. I'm John Towers, and this has been the Abracast, and yeah, go see this goddamn movie, will you?
Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com and visit the storefront for tarot cards, merch, and books. Support the show. Get access to the show archive at subscribestar.com. Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.